castles. I've always wanted to make them, but every single time I would attempt to, I would fail. Castles or builds are very heavily detailed, and unlike modern builds, need more structure, which is what makes me like them so much. And overall, castles are cool to build. Castles are a great way to show off in front of your friends, because when somebody thinks about castles, they think big, and that's why you need to know how to build one, which is why I'm making one in Minecraft. In this video, I will show you how to turn art like this into epic Minecraft builds like this. I'll be showing you each step to take in order to bring an idea into your world and how to effectively use tools such as World Edit. Alright, so where to begin? First thing you want to do is find the artwork. I use a website called Pinterest. If you've heard of it before, you know what's up. If you don't, pretty much you can search whatever you want and you could gather ideas this way. So I'm gonna search castle concept art because that's what I'm planning to build. And as you can see, you're given hundreds of castles in form of concept art. Let's take a look at this one. As you can see, there is a large variety of castles to choose from. This one looks pretty cool, but that's not what we're going for in this video. Now on the top, there are different tabs you could choose from, so if you choose something like a mountain, it gives you castles, well, on top of mountains. Or, let's say you want something futuristic, something goes for that as well. Same thing goes for desert. You can get many desert castles to choose from. But you don't only have to look for castles. You can choose mansions, modern mansions, or you could go for a steampunk build. The opportunities are truly endless, but for now we're choosing this castle made by ArtStation. So now that we have our concept art, let's get started. Alright, so here we go. A big tip I have when starting off a build is to outline. This can be done in a variety of ways, but I like to use different colored blocks to appropriately color code everything. So in my case, I would be using orange as the walls and cyan colors, that would be my roof. And anything else could just be marked in red or white or whatever else you have lying around. But as you can see here, I'm trying my best to use concept art as my guide to lay out the outline, but I'm also bearing in mind that it is okay to add my own little things there. So overall, it doesn't have to be 100% exact. Think of it as a remix. The reason why we're using concept in the first place is to get a good idea of what we want, but there is nothing stopping us from adding our own shapes and our own little details. At this point, I'm just flying around, seeing where things belong, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this is not how the original build looked like. I'm adding extra pillars, extra towers, and a whole bunch of little extra things that I feel would fit. But notice how the orange makes up the main structure of this build, and the cyan makes up the roofs and anything else that's not as important. The red could be to be determined, I guess. In this build, you'll see that some of the original elements will be taken away and changed. But once you have your full structure set and done, at this point you could fill in the walls. I use a tool called World Edit. This helps me fill in things quicker. If you wanted to learn how to use World Edit, there are many videos out there teaching you how to do so. But in this video, I'm just going to stick to teaching how to build things. But as you can see, by using this tool, it really helps me quickly fill in the gaps. I gotta say, this process is one of my favorite parts because it really brings the build together, and when you step back, you get to kind of get to see the overall shape take place. This could also be a good time to add any other extra structures to the build that you may want. After filling in all the gaps, you can see that now I'm adding in the windows. This part also is very satisfying because now it also shows you little small details that really help bring the build together, because now it looks more like a castle than just an empty blob. And after that, we are left with this. So let me tell you the process behind what's going on here. So as you guys can see in the time lapse, well, What we did was we added a whole bunch of orange to kind of, like I said earlier, be our template and our kind of our guide. So what we did was, as you guys saw, I went around just put a, just use some world edit and filled this in with stone. So right now we basically have a clean canvas to work on, to texture, to put doors, windows, etc., and to kind of play around with. Now there's definitely some spots I have to kind of finish, but those are because those are gonna be a little bit different than the others. I'll get to that in a moment, but nonetheless, this is where we stand now. If we come over here, we have some sort of a little color palette or texture palette, if you will, that we have in mind. And so, as you guys can see, it starts off with this gray but not very dark acacia wood. Moves to tough. This is the dead fire coral block. It turns from red to gray. I don't know why that one didn't do it, but whatever. And then you have cobblestone, moves to andesite, gravel, and then you have all the greens. So as you can see, it kind of transitions into this grayish green to like light green to a dark green, which is really good to kind of transition the colors through. If we look at this pillar over here, this one looks a little bit more different because this one is the one I've kind of been experimenting with. Am I 100% happy with this? Not really, but that's kind of what's the purpose behind testing. As you guys can see, this one has its windows and its textures and its block palette and stuff. But if you guys look up, as you guys can see, I've been also working a lot on the roofs. Now this has textures with warp block, and it has some dark prismarine with it on the side, along with just like some fences and some stairs and some slabs to kind of shape the build a little bit more better. But as you guys can see, at the bottom here, we start off with the acacia wood and kind of move our way up and start to break down the blocks more and more. This is so that when you first look at it, your eyes tend to move up the build naturally instead of looking down. And that's kind of what the main purpose behind making builds that have textures, and one of the things that people like to do with their builds. Now, as we move back, those textures kind of start to fade away. And it starts to blend in a little bit more. Obviously, it's not going to be a really good example of that, but when you put it across the entire build, you'll notice it's darker all the way throughout the bottom, but as you move up, it turns a little bit lighter. It starts to break down. As you guys can see, you see a lot more stone there than you see down there. As you guys can see, I've been doing some extra shaping, some testing, just to see what I like. I don't know if I 100% still like this. Maybe I might still roll with it. If I could pull it off, I will. Now, this terrain will definitely be changed a lot. As you guys can see over there, I've been doing a little bit of practice with the world edit on some terrain work there. Hopefully, I kind of mimic that, but kind of over here, make it seem like it fits in more with this area, because a challenge with this place is that we're building it into this mountain and not just on a clean slate. But yeah, I mean, with the shape of the build, I'm pretty happy. We still have to figure out a roof design for this. Still a long ways to go, but I would say we're above the halfway point, and this is definitely starting to look like an actual castle now, and I can't wait to see the final result. So at this point, you could see I'm adding the little small details such as windows and adding a third color, which in my case is the dark oak planks. This process can take longer than other tasks because of how randomized it could be. Depending on the scale of your build, this is when you finally finish the entire structure of the build before the texturing process. And you'll often find yourself taking a step back to see where certain elements belong so that you could see imperfections that may require some work. Or sometimes you could determine if you want to keep an element of the build or not. And now here comes the fun part, it's time to texture. As I texture this build, I put into consideration that I should be texturing the right places. I often see builds where the texturing is overdone. A smart way of doing it is by making sure the bottom is textured heavy, which breaks down the higher you go up the build. At this point, you also come to notice that this build is really coming together. It really goes to show how much difference just texturing can make to a build. So now we're at a point where this castle seems to look about done, but that's almost the case because as you can see, the terrain isn't exactly what we would want it to be, because we have birch trees and just this terrain is all messed up, and we definitely got to do a lot of cleaning and whatnot. But definitely getting there with the texturing definitely makes it feel a lot more like an actual build now. And if we have a side-by-side comparison, you could see the difference that texturing does to a build. But I mean, as you can see, if we move in closer, there's just so much to look at. But when we move back, it creates that illusion I was speaking about earlier, that it kind of fades it away, which kind of makes your eyes kind of move upwards the builds, because as it begins to break down there. But the next step, I would say, is to start throwing in some terrain to kind of fix it up a bit and kind of make this castle fit in a little bit more. And then we want to get rid of a whole bunch of birch trees and then replace them with some of our own nice pine trees, and maybe add a waterfall over there. I've been always trying to it's kind of a start of a waterfall, I guess. Make a little bit of a nice waterfall there, and do some fishing touches. I think that we can call the build done. Obviously, just minor details we have to fix, and apart from that, I think we should be good. So let's run that time lapse. And we are here left with this final result of our amazing castle that we built together here. And as you guys can see, this now looks complete. From when I was talking to you guys last, this build was lacking nature, was lacking terrain, was lacking, just overall existing in this world that we have. Whenever you build a building, you can't just plop it in anywhere and just call it a day. You actually have to make it feel like it actually has been there for years, and you actually have to make it feel like it actually belongs there. And by adding these pine trees, these custom-made pine trees, plopping them in anywhere that I felt like I were needed to, they just, fill in pretty good. But yeah, we also ended up making that waterfall down here that, goes all the way down here and passes through those little, this nice little bridge here. This little water stream that passes through this little gap over here, which I think is pretty cool. And overall, yeah, I mean, definitely has a nice impact by having all this greenery and this foliage. Overall, really makes the building come to life. Whenever creating a build, something you have to keep in mind is that you want to give that building a backstory. You have to make that building seem like it really does belong there, and by me creating this story where it's probably an abandoned old castle, makes it feel like, okay, this place is run down and it actually really belongs there. And you can really accomplish that by adding, like I said, all this terrain and all these trees just to kind of make it fit in with its environment. So overall, when building a building, the first thing you want to think about is its backstory. Make up any sort of backstory to it to help you make sure that you actually make a good build. But other than that, I would call that a success. Am I ever going to do an interior? Probably not, but hey, it's always good to look at. But with that being said, I want to thank you guys for joining me in this episode and learning from me a thing or two when it comes to building, and hopefully you can implement this stuff into your own builds, and hopefully they'll end up looking pretty good. With that being said, my name is Ultra161, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye!